or management of WFMD.
Local free talk continues on the weekend with Frederick's Forum on 930 WFMD. Conversations with and about local newsmakers. Your hosts, Darren Wigfield and Dave Schmidt.
Welcome.
Welcome to Frederick's Forum. I'm Darren Wigfield in the studio with my co-host Dave Schmidt.
We forgot our visual our cues.
Yeah,
everybody.
we usually point, and you take this one, and instead we just... Anyway.
The problem is the guest that we have for the first hour at least was so interesting that we were engaged in conversation right up until we had to go live. Normally there's a couple of seconds of awkward pause while
I'm getting ready. Yeah. So, speaking of our guest today, today we're getting into a topic that we've kind of brushed on in the past, but we've never really dug into it before.
Yeah, we kind of bring it up when other people get anywhere close to it. We'll go, hey, we'll talk about this real quick for a couple of seconds. But we never, I don't think we've ever done a full hour just on marijuana policy.
No,
and
not
where
at
it
all.
stands on where, and definitely, and you can introduce our guest today, but we have somebody that can not only tell us about where it stands, but also the organizations, who's working on what we should be working on for or against, right?
So in the past, we've done shows about the opioid crisis, and we've kind of, in those
addiction.
contexts, addiction, the heroin issues. We've had a former state delegate on who was at the time toying with running for office, but decided he wanted to focus on trying to just focus on the opioid crisis because he himself had fallen into addiction. In fact, that's what was the downfall of his earlier political career. Mm-hmm. And so he talked about homelessness and his own journey in dealing with addiction. We've had our Frederick County Sheriff Jenkins on a few times. He was a leader in bringing out this crisis because, his guys are on the ground seeing it firsthand that this was becoming a problem. He was telling us a couple years prior to it becoming national media that this is a big deal and we need, as a society, to cope with it. And the reason I bring up all of these opioid episodes that we've done is because a lot of people get into opioids because they're looking for pain treatment. Mm-hmm. And what our topic today, cannabis, marijuana, THC, whatever you want to call it, is an alternative treatment for a lot of people, but it's one that we've had that they haven't had available to them.
Yeah, and the big thing we've constantly brought up is our efforts to convert it from a question about law enforcement and move it into a question. There's mental health questions, there's health questions, there's all sorts of ways we should be addressing this outside of the criminal justice system.
Yes, and in fact, I gave, again, Sheriff Jenkins a ton of credit because when he's doing that, when he's going out to public forums saying, look, this is a problem, that's kind of his way of saying, this is a problem, we're arresting people, but society needs to solve the problem outside of us, because he can keep arresting people. He had the resources, he's got the officers reporting directly to him. It wasn't about that. It was about saying society needs to address this, and we need treatment centers, we need intervention, we need something else besides just arresting people through it. At least that was what I took as the implication of him going out publicly to, and he said we need a crisis intervention center in Frederick. He said that on this show. So anyway,
so today's guest,
today's guest, Howard Wooldridge, who has been a long-time proponent for opposing prohibition. He founded an organization called LEAP, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and now he's working for another organization called Citizens Opposing Prohibition.
Former police officer, right? Detective, I think.
Yep.
And something about you riding a horse across the United States. So believe me, I'm going to ask questions about that.
Yeah, we'll find out more about that in just a minute. So we're going to take our break right now. We'll come back and really find out what has Howard Wooldridge's journey been. What has he seen in the public discourse, the public attitudes toward decriminalization, and also what are we looking forward to in the next couple of years. So I'm Darren Wickfield in the studio with Dave Schmidt. You're listening to Frederick's Forum. We'll be right back.
More than opinion.
What just happened here? The Donald Trump immigration agenda just got gutted.
It's perspective.
Folks, this budget is a slap in the face.
Rush Limbaugh.
This budget is the Washington establishment telling Donald Trump to go to hell. is what this budget is. And they're doing it with smiles on their faces.
It's Rush Limbaugh from noon to 3 on WFMD.
Like the final play that wins the game, Frederick Air, it's a good call. Like taking your umbrella 'cause it felt like rain, Frederick Air, it's a good call.
I'm Steve Schmidt, president of Frederick Air, Frederick's only blind factor authorized dealer and Medal of Excellence winner. We see thousands of our neighbors for regular maintenance every 6 months. They can be confident that every year when the heat hits, their air conditioning is going to keep them cool. At Frederick Air, we want to make sure that everyone can have that confidence. When's the last time you had your system checked? Are you really sure it's going to keep you cool? Our licensed and NATE certified techs can give you the assurance your system will work. Just call us and ask for an inspection. It might be the best call you make this year. That's just another way that Frederick Air and Bryant will do whatever it takes to keep you comfortable this year. Frederick Air, it's a good call.
Call 301-663-0300, Frederick Air.
Hi, Tom Bodette with a word on fusion cuisine, where you mix one country's food with another one. I always call that stew, but whatever gets you to dessert. But whether you like a French vichyssoise with Thai chili oil, or you're more into the fusion of American burger and French fry, you'll save more for that meal at Motel 6. It's an intriguing mix of clean, comfortable, and low prices, or as we fusionistas call it, clicolo. I'm Tom Bodette from Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Hi, I'm Cal Ripken for Roy Rogers Restaurants. For me, the roast beef sandwich is my favorite. Slow roasted, top inside round USDA choice beef sliced right before your eyes. To celebrate their 50th anniversary, Roy's is hosting Rollback Days. Come into your neighborhood Roy Rogers from April 6th through the 8th, buy one roast beef sandwich combo at the regular price, and get an extra roast beef sandwich for just 50 cents. Visit RoyRogersRestaurants.com for a location near you.
You're a safe distance from the swamp, and that's why you're listening to 930 WFMD.
Welcome back to Frederick's Forum. Dave Schmidt, Darren Whitfield in the studio with Howard Wooldridge. Is that how to pronounce it?
Or just Cowboy.
Cowboy.
So this track
Take
is
it.
called Roll with the Changes. Roll.
Frank's down there, I think.
Frank's punny with his track titles.
So what started this journey? I mean, I'll tell you, I have known about you for, you said you've been doing it for 10 years?
20.
So I've probably about 10 years or so. I think the first time we ever saw, I don't know where it was, D.C. or Annapolis or somewhere here, so I went, oh, who's that guy? Who's that guy? So we've known about you for a long time. So what started your journey from police detective locking people up for smoking marijuana to saying, look, we need, as a society, we need to look at this differently?
Yeah, I moved to Texas in 1994, left police work to follow my wife down there with a better job. And after a couple of years, I realized I wanted to be engaged in making the world better. And my job, of course, wasn't doing that, my new job, a civilian. So I got involved with the drug reform movement in Fort Worth, Dallas, Texas, and to make a difference. Because if you cut me today, I will bleed blue. My DNA is protect and serve. And so I know that the war on drugs has been the most destructive, dysfunctional, and immoral policy since slavery and Jim Crow. Anything I can do to end it a week earlier, 2 weeks earlier, I'm going to save more lives by doing that than I did in my 18 years as a police officer.
Was it an evolving thing? Was it you joined, you were a police officer, and then while you were serving, you realized this is wrong? Or was it kind of you got done and started to realize it?
Well, a little of both. I was a college student, normal kid, smoking some dope in college, Michigan State. Then became a police officer and realized quickly that it wasn't just what I heard in the dormitories. In 18 years, I went to zero calls for service generated by the use of marijuana. Alcohol, I've calculated
daily.
1,300 calls for service, including homicide, suicide, rape, assault, traffic accidents. Alcohol was by far the number one generator of police calls. And marijuana was a statistical zero. And then when I became a detective, I started seeing all the felony crime, people breaking into your house, stealing your car, serious shoplifting, et cetera, was caused mostly by addicts, People at this time in the mid '90s, it was crack. So you need $200 a day for crack. And when I investigated follow up on a home burglary, and the couple started crying over the loss of this guy's grandfather's pocket watch, and long story. And I just said, why don't we legalize these drugs, or let them have all they want until they're dead? Leave the good people alone. Because good people are being hurt every day when somebody breaks into their house and steals their car, steals their purse, robs them at the ATM. And that was my epiphany of saying, this is just counterproductive. We should be protecting good citizens. And if you have a drug problem, go see a doctor. Or don't. Mm-hmm. If you're drinking 2 quarts of whiskey a day, if you're smoking 3 packs of cigarettes, one thing I know for sure, and I think even Sheriff Jenkins would support it, the government cannot fix stupid. And you've got me trying to fix really stupid people, as a broad term, and we're not equipped to fix stupidity. Our job should become again, public safety. We are pretty good at public safety, protecting you from the threats out in society, whether it's a drunk driver, a rapist, somebody breaking into your house, fraud. We are pretty good at that. But with drug prohibition, nobody calls 911. It's difficult to enforce laws when nobody feels like a victim. And here we are 46 years and $1 trillion later, absolutely gone backwards. There's heroin now in every small town in America. So the police, and I'm sure the sheriff might have a problem saying it like I do, but we are a mosquito on the butt of an elephant. We make no difference in supply. We make no difference in price. But yet we are out there every day fighting the good fight. But this is now 46 years later. This is nonsense.
I'd even go so far as to say there's a lot of evidence that pushes it to the other side. That says that the fact that we view it here in the United States as a law enforcement, as a criminal justice issue, creates a lot of the crime surrounding it. That you don't have as much, even though you have plenty of calls for service and a lot of negative effects of alcohol. But how much are we really pulling people over and getting alcohol out of their cars? Thinks all the time and effort that's spent, even though the end result is vastly, as you said, statistically vastly more dangerous than the use of marijuana.
And you just said we haven't had a meaningful impact on supply or price. But if you did, you reduce the supply. The price goes up. Now there's more incentive for the dealers.
Of course.
They're going to take bigger risks and do more dangerous things in order to make that money. All you're doing by driving up the price of these things is encouraging more violent people to get involved in.
For the last 3 years? He says, yeah. I said, you've had Economics 101. When the price is still the same 3 years later, doesn't that tell you that supply and demand are pretty much in balance? And therefore, no matter how many kilos we knock off, the bad guys, and as I explained, I said, let's say you get 20% of supplies. The bad guys start out in Mexico with 120% of what's needed in Paducah every week. So they lose 20% along the way. It makes nothing because the price is built in with a loss of 20% of product. This is Economics 101. And the poor guy said he knew intellectually that, yeah, the efforts of the police are meaningless, but he had to back his boss saying, but we believe that law enforcement is part of the solution. And especially when police officers are retired and don't have to worry about being elected sheriff or renewing a contract as chief of police, then they speak out and say, yeah, this is all pretty much worthless because every drug dealer arrested, shot, or killed is replaced just like that. So what's the point of arresting more drug dealers? There isn't one, except it gives us a job, and that's why the police as an industry and the prison guards as an industry and their unions fight me in Congress every day to keep that money stream coming. Y'all give us $82 billion a year to chase, arrest, and incarcerate for these 5 or 6 drugs which are illegal.
And so would you say that the majority of former police officers would agree with you? Or at least in your experience?
In my experience.
They may not be willing to say it, but...
across America, and I won't mention a person I know from Frederick PD who retired a couple of years ago. Oh, he said, "Oh yeah, Howard, I agree with you 100%. But I'm not going to go out and say it in public at a Rotary because of peer group pressure and other reasons." But this guy was a very knowledgeable police officer here in Frederick, and he said, "Yeah, this is common sense. This is Prohibition Part 2." And we should be doing better things than chasing Willie Nelson and Charlie Sheen.
So hopefully this isn't too sensitive of a topic, but I was talking to a former police officer about this topic, and he said I can't get behind decriminalization. I can't get behind legalization or allowing it to be recreational or any of those things. He said, because as a law enforcement officer, I saw too many of my colleagues get injured or killed enforcing drug laws, and I just can't accept the idea that they died for no reason.
Yes, I've heard that before. I've had cops get very emotional with me, like in my face, screaming that their best friend died on a drug raid 6 years ago, and if we adopt my ideas, that means he died for nothing. Screw you and the horse you rode in on. And the fact that I don't want any more funerals in my profession going on a drug raid, it does not slow these guys down. Their friend died, therefore we must continue. I'm of the Vietnam era, and we were always saying we don't want more good young men to die in a rice paddy for nothing, and eventually we were able to bring that war to a conclusion. But now we know, 58,000 good men died for nothing, and there's no way to get around it. There have been hundreds of police officers killed because of drug prohibition. Hundreds more killed themselves in a situation where they got caught with corruption, stealing evidence money or whatever, and then they take the honorable way out by blowing their brains out. So, but there's no way to bring that back. And I would argue with but there's no arguing or trying to convince them with facts. This is like you accept it rationally that you stop it tomorrow. And there were losses through the last 40 years, but there's nothing we can do about it. So at least let's not have another 40 years and compound the mistake like we did in Vietnam for 10 years.
Believe me, I understand. I mean, it's the same thing here. I was in Iraq 2008. I have, you look at these videos or these maps where they say where ISIS kind of took back over, and I go, oh yeah, this is where we were hurt, where guys and women, where they got hurt, and then it's not even in our control anymore. Right. So literally having to view it as it was a complete waste of time, effort, and people's lives.
That the physical territory that
we were driving around in.
Patrolling and defending, we've since ceded that ground.
Exactly, and so it's such a complete. It was for no point. So I understand the emotional response to. Then it makes it not worth it. But man, it's still stop. Pull, break tomorrow. How about the next person not die for the same reason that the other person didn't die for no reason? And I guess believe me, I fully understand the emotion behind that, which is why my question about how willing are they to, because I mentioned before we got on air here about, like, for example, Portugal. One of the guys that was in charge of in Portugal's before they decriminalized, the top law enforcement officer has since come out and said, this is the worst thing I have ever been a part of in my entire life, was all of what was their version of the drug war, for that exact reason, because of how many people died. And this was the guy that was in charge. He was the one that said, go do these things. Right. And so how difficult that is for police officers to later on.
Yeah. Let me just finish up Darren's point. It's been my experience in Congress as a lobbyist and advocate that emotional reasons are there for sure. However, the number one reason that the police industry fights me in Congress every day is the money. The $82 billion you give us, plus we took in $5.2 billion in civil asset forfeiture, mostly on drug cases. It's another show, but
we've done a show on that.
Have you?
Yeah.
Make no mistake, the prime driver of the Sheriff's Association, Chiefs of Police Association, the FOP, Fraternal Order of Police, the unions, is the money stream coming in. My analysis shows that we end drug prohibition tomorrow. You're looking at 200,000 police and prison guard jobs gone, mostly prison guard. The police will still have stuff to do. in terms of societal problems, but it's mostly going to be the prison guards are going to lose their job because we will close half the prisons in this country when we end drug prohibition. And one of the sad things that I saw the sheriff put it up, and God bless him, the number of overdose cases that the paramedics go to, plus the number of dead. What we don't face is what Portugal is already going that way. If we had a better system of treatment, like the Swiss do for heroin treatment, that 120 dying today from heroin and fentanyl, et cetera, would be brought down to almost zero if we gave these addicts access to legal drugs, which would take the place of the heroin, or simply, as the Swiss do, give them pure heroin every day so they don't die.
Yeah, regulated, put them in a space, and then do a treatment.
Right.
But you said it was $82 billion, right? Imagine spending $82 billion on education and on prevention instead of on law enforcement. I mean, we wouldn't need nearly the $82 billion.
Those 200,000 prison guards would make a lot of nurses.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or any fill in the blank what we need. We need better teachers. We need better hospital facilities. All this money wasted on these white elephants, which will one day be a white elephant. I'm not sure if I'll see it in my lifetime, the end of, like, say, heroin and cocaine prohibition, which now are 103 years old. But certainly the rational choice is to say the criminal justice system is useless in this area. Portugal has shown the way, but even other countries in Europe will not adopt Portugal for reasons I don't know.
A lot of it is the money. A lot of it is, it's kind of like the third rail of politics. You don't touch the police, like first responders, police officers, military. You can't say anything. Listen, whatever they're saying, okay, we agree with them. We're fine. We got to give them more money. And we dealt with this a lot, the civil asset forfeiture show, where actually Senator Huff, one of our state senators here, was putting in a lot of work. We agreed with what he was doing there in saying that this is a Fourth Amendment issue. This is your property, and we can just take it. And no due process. No, it's ours, and you got to prove that money is not connected to drugs or whatever it is.
Right.
And how even having a system like that where you can create that kind of abuse, that's my problem. I mean, this is somewhat of a rabbit trail here, but we took some money for we hold ICE. People that are in the ICE program, being deported out. And then we use that money to buy some armored car here in Frederick County. So my problem is why do we even allow the federal government to say, look, you can have this money, and then it creates – I'm not saying that the Frederick County Police Department or Frederick County Sheriff's Department is doing this, but it creates a world in which it incentivizes a little bit more enforcement. How about we go after, and maybe we need to put more people in this system because we're getting money. So I'm not saying that in that situation there is something wrong. I'm saying that I don't like any scenario in which we create a financial incentive to enforce laws. And so this is a perfect situation in that, where that $82 billion is a financial incentive for people to be less than honest with what really should be happening in enforcement. So, okay, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back in just a couple minutes. Listen, if you want to be part of the conversation, which I think we have a call already, 301-694-9363, 301-694 WFMD. Back in just a minute.
The Frederick Motor Company makes buying a new Ford simple for everyone. From great SUVs like the Ford Escape to the payload and towing capabilities of the Ford F-150. The Frederick Motor Company makes it simple. Visit us on the Golden Mile and frederickmotor.com.
From the 930 WFMD Roy Rogers Restaurant News Center.
This is WFMD News.
Frederick County has launched the 2018 Septic Pump Out Rebate Program. For those who have septic tanks, they can receive a rebate of $75 if they have their systems pumped out between January 1st and June 30th of this year.
Just like with rebates you get at a store, you need to send in a form, which can be found on the county's website at frederickcountymd.gov/septic rebates.
County Executive Jan Gardner unveiled this program at her public information briefing on Thursday.
The county has set aside $25,000 for this program, which is enough for approximately 330 rebates. Once the money runs out, rebates will no longer be available, so it's first come, first served, so get your application in or your rebate form filled out.
The purchase is sponsored by the county's Office of Sustainability and Environmental Resources. A Maryland man has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for his role in a dogfighting conspiracy and a separate credit card fraud scheme. 31-year-old Rodriguez Norman of Temple Hills, Maryland, pleaded guilty to multiple charges in federal court in Alexandria, Virginia. Prosecutors say Norman bred and trained dogs for fighting throughout Maryland and Virginia. When he was arrested in August, police found shot collars, whips, a blood-stained fighting ring, and a noose-like contraption used to hang dogs by their neck to build muscle. The 10-year sentence imposed Friday nearly matched the 12-year sentence sought by prosecutors. 1 year of the 10 was attributable to the dogfighting, and the rest related to the fraud. Lawyers for Norman, a former substitute teacher in Virginia Beach, sought a 5-year sentence. I'm Kylie Kahn on Mid-Maryland's news station, 930 WFMD.
Fox News Radio, I'm Carol McHugh. Dead and injured in Munster, Germany, where a vehicle plowed into an outdoor pub in that city's historic district.
Police have confirmed that there has been a vehicle has driven into the crowd and that the driver of that vehicle has killed himself. So we know that several have died. Unconfirmed reports of many more injured on top of that.
Katerina Vitozzi of Sky News. Latest reports say 3 are dead, more than 20 injured. President Trump taking on sanctuary cities in his weekly address while calling on all communities to take a stand against them.
My message to communities under siege from drugs and gangs and violence is you can stop this, and you can stop it cold. Partner with the federal government so we can help to remove these threats from your communities and restore peace to our streets.
Fox News, we report, you decide.
The 930 WFMD weather bug forecast for Frederick and surrounding counties for this afternoon calls for it to be cloudy. Our high 43. There's a chance of rain and snow into the evening. A slight chance for snow overnight. Cloudy skies will gradually clear with a low of 25. We'll wrap up the weekend Sunday with a sunny day at a high 45. Unity partly cloudy Sunday night with a low of 29. There's a chance for rain and snow into the afternoon Monday. Then a chance of rain. We'll have cloudy skies at a high 44. Again, the high for today, 43. And if you need heat, contact the Best. Thompson, Best at bestheatac.com. I'm Rod Tanner.
What if we told you you had a hole in your pocket and money was falling out? Well, if you shop at Giant Eagle and Market District but don't fill up at Get-Go, you kind of do. Because with the new Fuel Perks Plus, you earn perks at the pump that add to what you already earn in store. So you rack up tons of perks in no time at all. And you can use them to get up to 30 gallons of free gas or 20% off any grocery purchase. Now earn perks on gas and all your everyday purchases and put more money in your pocket. Download the new Giant Eagle app for an instant 50 cents off per gallon of gas. More perks, more places, more savings.
Frederick's Forum on 930 WFMD, a service of Hunting Creek Outfitters in downtown Frederick, and Frederick Air, Bryant's National Dealer of the Year.
It's Frederick's Forum on 930 WFMD.
There's an episode of South Park. I don't remember, Cartman, I guess, where they start to sing the song. He's like, you can't sing because once you start it, I have to finish the whole song. So once he hears that "Come Sail Away," so the whole show, he's like singing all the
Come
words.
Sail Away. Is that another drug euphemism from Frank?
Away, come sail.
I don't know. All right, so you're listening to Frederick's Forum. I'm Darren Wakefield in the studio with Dave Schmidt and our guest today, Howard Wooldridge from Citizens Opposing Prohibition, a former police officer who now spends his time in D.C. trying to relieve some of...
Yeah, as a troublemaker and a advocate.
Yes.
That's accurate. In Congress, causing trouble.
And although we had gotten well into drug war in general, your focus professionally is on marijuana specifically. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a very practical guy. In the moment, 2018, the ability to move a marijuana issue has become fairly easy, if I may use those words, and also in Congress. And so as much as my organization, citizensopposingprohibition.org, their goal is to end the prohibition at the federal level of all drugs. It's starting with marijuana.
Yeah, take the wins where you can get them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like recently, we were able to get into the omnibus spending bill that Trump signed about a week ago, a restriction on the DEA to go after state legal medical marijuana operations. For the fourth year in a row, fiscal year 18, they have not had the money to go after these operations in California, Colorado, Ohio, Louisiana,
Washington State,
and Maryland.
Maryland,
for that matter. And
Massachusetts.
We're already working on FY19 to, again, deny them the money so that the millions of patients across America can continue to receive God's green medicine in a legal way through the stores.
This was the folks in D.C. don't have the cojones to legalize or decriminalize or legitimize in any way. They're just saying, yeah, we just won't enforce those laws. We're not going to give our enforcement arm the funds to enforce them.
What's really, though, important about that advocacy is under the previous Department of Justice, the head of the DOJ had said, look, I'm not going to go after these states. It's a states' rights issue. I'm not going after them. The current Attorney General has said the exact opposite. Sessions, if you gave him the money, not you, but if we as a collective gave him the money, he would start going after because he has such a very specific and in my very, very outdated, unscientific view on what the medicinal marijuana world and by keeping the money away from him, we're keeping him from going after those states. So incredibly important advocacy.
So we've got a caller who was nice enough to hold on the line for us through that commercial break. Melvin, welcome to Frederick's Forum.
How you all doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Doing great. How you doing?
I'm just curious about one thing. This is what I don't understand about when people make laws and stuff. They never think it through. It's like, let's flip a coin and then whatever happens. Whatever happened to your analysis test and getting a job where you have to take a drug test? I'm an employer, small employer, but my insurance requires me to have everybody drug test.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have turned so many people down because I say, you got marijuana, you got.
So the
question what's going to happen? Am I going to...
You're asking if we were to legalize or to decriminalize at the federal level and states allowed it.
Hey, there's a certain... Yes?
You're breaking a little bit there, Melvin, but I think we've got the gist of the question, so thanks for holding on, and we'll see if we can get you an answer.
Yeah, sorry about that, Melvin. So the question I think is... what are the consequences of doing this besides the fact that we're talking about $82 billion that we can spend on something else? What are the consequences for employers?
Employers have the same rights as always. I'm sure every employer will test for alcohol, the number one drug problem in America, and that will not change. And alcohol is legal. But if you're drunk on the job, employers are going to send you home. If you're stoned on the job with marijuana, again, the employer has the right to send you home. The courts all across America, this has already been decided. Courts across America have decided the employer has the right to have a drug-free atmosphere for work, and they can send people home and fire them at will for breaking the policies and procedures of any given company. So for the caller who has a small company, he can not hire these people, and there's no recourse. You can't sue an employer for not hiring you because the marijuana is legal in your state. It doesn't matter. The employer has the right. I just add, in my first civilian job out of police work, we were not allowed to smoke cigarettes, tobacco, because it kept the insurance costs down, and we were P-tested for tobacco. And so this is something, again, I'm all in favor of employer rights. If you're paying my paycheck, you can pretty much set my behavior, especially during hours of business.
I think when the insurance question becomes, probably insurance companies will say, look, you may or may not want your employees smoking dope. Doesn't matter. But we'll give you maybe a better rate if you have a drug-free environment or you have a tobacco-free. Sure. I know as an employer that the less people we have smoking tobacco in our company, the better our insurance is. Yeah. Just it is. And so we can make our policies around that you can go farther than the federal government, but it really goes back to somebody could be on a legal drug, so like alcohol, a barbiturate, something sure. much more that can be prescribed to them, and I don't want them working on my job site just as much as any other illegal substance. So it really is, it's separating out the substance from, again, it goes back to the idea that you as a person should be able to do whatever you want to yourself, and then as an employer, you can employ whoever you want.
Mm-hmm. So we had another caller, he wanted to make a point, but he didn't care to come on the air, who said one of the challenges, and I remember this being in the news when Colorado first legalized recreational marijuana, was the testing technology really isn't there yet to know. So, for example, with an employer, if you gave them a drug test, and it came up that they had marijuana in their system. That doesn't mean that they showed up high to work. They could have been on their own time using it, and by the time they came to work, they were completely fine. So the same issue happened in Colorado, where people are driving, and they said, in fact, I remember the folks who believe in continuing to keep it illegal kept saying, well, yeah, all of a sudden we get all these cases of people driving with marijuana in their system, and so they're driving around stoned. Well, not necessarily. You're just urine or blood testing them and finding out that they had smoked sometime in the last week or two. And so is there any progress being made in that, in how to do that testing, how to do is the testing technology getting better? Do you know?
And let me just back up 30 years. As a police officer, when I first started, actually 40 years, there was no roadside test for detecting alcohol. So my first 10 years in police work, it was just you smell it, and then you do testing, and then if you decided the person had bad driving, bad testing, then you said, I think you're above 10 at that time, the limit, and take you to jail. Then they blow at the jail, and they'd say, okay, it's 14, and everything's fine. In 1985, 86, they came up with the roadside breath tester for not only the presence but also the amount. Made things a lot simpler. No, there's no test for that for marijuana. There's also no test for oxycodone, Vicodin, anything. There's no test for it. So the police officer, if they see bad driving and the person tests badly, can't say the ABCs, etc., you simply say, sir, you're under arrest for DUI, drugs. And then you take them to a clinic, you draw blood, you then take them to the jail, you book them in, they spend 8 hours in jail, public safety is served, and then 2-3 days later, the lab says, okay, there was whatever milligrams of oxycodone or marijuana or something else in their system. Then you can use all that information to successfully prosecute in court. I have done it as a police officer, and the jury has found these people guilty, even though there's no legal standard of how much oxycodone you can have in your system or Percocet. Juries do come back guilty. This is not rocket science, and we've been doing this for 40 years. And especially this comes up, and it came up in Montgomery County when they're talking about the 10 milligram thing. We'll have to train our officers. Officers have been trained at least for 40 years, at least in Michigan, to detect for non-alcohol DUI, and then how to successfully arrest and prosecute for it.
So you're saying up until the mid-'80s, roadside sobriety testing was walk the line, touch your nose, pat your tummy and rub your head, whatever you got.
And just sniff and go, sir, I smell alcohol.
Sure.
I mean, that's how it was done. And now I love technology, and they are developing some type of roadside test for like a cotton swab put in your mouth saying detect marijuana in the last 2 hours. But it still won't give you the amount you're stoned. And then you get into a more complex question of, like OxyContin, if your pain is so great that the OxyContin doesn't make you high, you can still legally drive. Same thing with marijuana. How much is in there? Alcohol, you can be up to an 07 and still legally drive.
Man,
so in those cases,
I don't know how.
Well, the other thing you got to keep in mind is police now have, not everywhere, but in a lot of cases and increasingly, body cameras. So whereas before it was the officer's word, I observed him not walk on the line correctly, and then is the jury going to believe you or not? Now you don't have to worry about it because you've got the video of them not walking the line.
Yeah, you can show the jury and say, look, this person was clearly under the influence. But I don't, I'm no scientist, but I don't know how you're going to be able to give an actual, some kind of blood content, because the person, there are people, alcohol is the same way. We can have somebody who is a habitual drinker that is not under the influence after a couple of beers, and then you have some people who have never drink, that you drink 2 beers. I'm thinking of a friend right now, I won't mention her name. You drink 2 beers, and there's no way I'm getting in a car with her. Even though, it's two Bud Lights. That's not putting her over the legal limit.
I'm not an expert, although I have arrested over 400 drivers for DUI or DUI drugs. However, I do know that even an alcoholic who will blow 20 and talking as clearly as I am today or right now, there are still some differences where their peripheral vision shrinks. And there are some things they can't prevent even if they can talk and walk well. So, no, you don't want somebody out there who's a 20, 22, 26. Even if they talk properly, they are still a danger to themselves and the public, and we arrest no matter what, because sometimes, especially with alcohol, that number's great.
Yeah.
To have.
Okay, so where do we stand on, who are the organizations working on? I know that you were with, I guess it was COPS, right? Or sorry, LEAP, and then now it's with Citizens Against. So Are you a group? Is it like 40 different organizations doing this? Is it you
There's
and
normal
15 other people?
For all that the other side has many.
Yeah.
Our side has now, we're up to 6 full-time lobbyists and advocates in the Congress. We have about another 6 part-timers.
So that's not 6 organizations. That's 6 individual people.
Six total people. In the organizations, you're talking, the number one is MPP, Marijuana Policy Project. Then you've got NORML. We all know NORML. They've got a great guy these days, Justin Streckel. COPS puts a full-timer. That's me on Capitol Hill. ASA, Americans for Safe Access. They have a full-timer on Capitol Hill. Then there's NCIA, the National Cannabis Industry Association. They've got 3 lobbyists, but they work on more like banking issues, not so much the overall prohibition. But for the overall prohibition, yeah, you got essentially 6 full-time and 6 part-time.
So would you say the domino that changes all this is the schedule? Getting it from Schedule 1 down to 2 or 3.
So before we talk into that, though, we have to. What does that mean? What is Schedule 1? What is Schedule 3?
Sorry.
Yeah, and that's a debate. 1971, the DEA classified all drugs either as OTC, like aspirin, whatever, mouthwash, over the counter.
So
right?
so
Or
an
prescription.
OTC would be something it's not regulated and it has no harm.
Well, it's regulated how it's produced. It's regulated how much is in a bottle.
So, but it's not regulated to.
It regulates. I mean, a bottle of aspirin it says 325 milligrams or whatever, 81 for child. Aspirin kills people every day, but it's an over-the-counter drug. It gets down to a question of what's the best way for society to handle it.
Okay.
Then they put all the other drugs into schedules 1 through 5. 1 being the most restrictive, 5 being things like say a woman's birth control or something. Is Schedule 5. So, and then they said, well, what are we going to do with alcohol and tobacco? If we make them over the counter with no restrictions, like you can be 6 years old and buy the stuff. I mean, so what they did was, and of course, they should be Schedule 1. There's no medicinal benefit to tobacco, and there's no medicinal benefit to alcohol, and they're very dangerous and problematic. But of course, you couldn't make these things illegal. So what they did was they put them in a special, call it a shelf, in federal law, saying these 2 are special, and we leave them alone. And that's the way it's basically been for the last 46 years. And what the ultimate goal of
Because of how much money.
Well, money
exists
and you got
that industry.
100 million people using
And they
it.
were 50 years after alcohol prohibition. They knew what happened when they tried locking that one down.
Exactly. So one of the goals that we have in the ultimate goal that we have on Capitol Hill is to repeal the 1937 law and make this a states' rights issue, apply the 10th Amendment, and then eventually have the federal government put marijuana right next to alcohol and tobacco as stuff that it's a special situation. Those are the ultimate goals of what we do in Congress every day. We're working right now on 10th Amendment to get that so that the states to. Shall carry, shall issue. I mean, open carry, shall issue. This, again, Maryland decides what type of firearm you can have on your person or not. Gambling. Casino gambling, all that kind of stuff is, again, states' rights issue. And end-of-life decisions. You know, physician-assisted suicide, again, 10th Amendment controlled issue. The federal government has no say. So it's important to note that this is already still well-established law across America of many major areas of our lives which are still controlled by the state government, and the feds pretty much butt out.
So we talked about how you've accomplished, your big accomplishment this year was making sure the enforcement arm of the federal government didn't have money to go after state legalized medical, or including state legalized recreational?
No. Just
medical.
In the 30 states that have medical, the federal government has no money to go after. So the DEA cannot go bust a store in Urbana for selling medical marijuana. Can't be done.
There's videos you can find online. I think it was earlier when California, when they first started having these
No, it was Colorado.
medicinal.
It was definitely Colorado.
Okay.
California just is too
medicinal.
recent.
Medicinal.
Oh, medicinal. Okay,
facilities.
sorry.
And they were being raided by federal SWAT teams, even though they were completely legal in their own state. And this one dispensary had security cameras up, but they also had hidden security cameras up. And the SWAT team came in. The first thing they did was unhook all of the security cameras so that the owners of that facility wouldn't know what the police were doing in their facility after they'd arrested them and dragged them out. But they didn't know about the hidden ones, and they didn't turn those off. And you can see they're joking, they're having a great time, they're
eating the pot
the edibles,
brownies,
they're tasting, they're consuming. I mean, it's very telling.
Yeah.
What the real? I mean, if you can't make the moral claim that this stuff is bad for society, and make the claim, oh well, we had to turn off the cameras for our own safety, and then be caught consuming the product as soon as you drag the people that own it out in handcuffs.
And let me just say, guys, that one of the dark stains on my profession is caused by the corruption of this drug war. I mean, whether it's test-a-lying, which I've seen some reports on, where officers just lie through their teeth on a search warrant to get it, or they lie through their teeth about the permission to search a vehicle. The number of corruption cases across America is horrific. It's painful to me as a professional that my profession has become so corrupted by this drug prohibition that we will do anything to get an ounce of marijuana off the street. And the Fourth Amendment, be damned, the Fourth Amendment search and seizure. I mean, this is another reason I am passionate about ending this horrifically bad policy and getting my profession back to our true and only mission, which is public safety.
This brings it really full circle back to our conversation earlier about profit motive. That so much of this, these police officers, all this corruption is all based in the fact that there can be money to be made, whether it's money coming from the budgets or money inside, and the prohibition of it creates this profit motive. So I'm going to take a quick break here. Going to come back. You're listening to Frederick's Forum. Darren Wakefield, Dave Schmidt in the studio. We have Howard Woldridge of COPS, Citizens Opposing Prohibition, and former, actually, I think you founded LEAP, right? Yeah. The Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, and I used to work with them. So we're going to be back here in just a couple of minutes. Free Talk 930 WFMD.
Creek Outfitters. The season is changing, and so is our store, with new spring men's and women's clothing, as well as the latest in fly fishing gear. At Hunting Creek Outfitters, we literally have new products arriving every day. Top-of-the-line clothes from Orvis and Barber, Ex Officio, and more. And, of course, everything fly fishing, from rods and reels to waders and boots. Come see it all. We're located in downtown Frederick. We are Hunting Creek Outfitters, spring specialists, and so much more.
There comes a point in an adult child's life when they become a caregiver for their parents. If you're wondering if mom and dad may need help from an assisted living facility, there are some signs you should look for. Michael Paris is the Community Relations Director with Hartfield's Assisted Living in Frederick.
memory care, whether it's the not knowing how to get home, they're still driving and they've gone out, and 4 hours later, state troopers calling from another state because they ran out of gas and are on the side of the road. It can be as extreme as that, or the simplicity of cognitive impairments of just not remembering who their family is, the safety of the gas stove, a lot of potential hazards, really. One of the big things, too, is hygiene, personal hygiene. That tends to stop, and that's one of the things that you finally notice, because if you only go by once a week or once a month, or even only see them once a year, you might notice a big change after a year. But even the weekly times, if you just happen to be going the one time that they do clean themselves, it's the frequency or the lack thereof.
To find out if Hartfield's can help your mom and dad, call 301-663-8800.
At Ferguson, service is our most important part. So if service is the part you're missing from your supply house, come into one of our 600 nationwide locations and let our team help yours. Whether it's tracking down those hard-to-find parts, having your order ready and waiting at our will call, or helping you manage your inventory with our SKU app and online ordering, the edge every trade professional needs is right around the corner. And with Ferguson Pro Plus, you'll earn redeemable points with every online purchase. Come into one of our locations or visit Ferguson.com today.
Baseball season is back, and the Frederick Keys will begin their 30th season at Nimeo Field. Single game tickets go on sale on Friday, April 6th at 10 a.m., while fans can get ready for the season at Keys Fest on April 7th. This free event runs from 11 to 2 and includes stadium tours, food samples, catches in the outfield, and much more. Then be sure to come out for the home opener on Thursday, April 12th at 7 p.m. For tickets, call the Keys at 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com.
Live local, be local, listen local. 930 WFMD.
Everybody get up.
Welcome back, Frederick's Forum.
Blurred lines. Come on, Frank. What are you doing?
Mike Barnes putting in our YouTube chat saying that he liked this gentleman, that he has a good grasp of the concept of federalism. Yes, Mike, that's what we were talking about during the break here. I don't know where Howard went, but he ran out of the studio. That's exactly what we were talking about, was the how much we appreciate the view of federalism, the idea that it's not the responsibility of the federal government to tell people what to do. It's the responsibility of them to coordinate and protect commerce between the states.
It amazes me how many thought leaders we find who live locally. I'm not sure that Howard lives in Frederick County, but I know he's in the area nearby somewhere. We've got so many great resources to have on the show, and it's just,
I know why. DC.
Yeah, obviously that's a part of it. And so what's great is, as the libertarian that I am, the people that need to be near D.C. to make a difference but don't want to live there.
Yeah.
Frederick's a good place for them to end up, and we benefit greatly from that as a community to have these thought leaders with us.
So he's going to stick around for the second hour. We're talking about marijuana policy. We're talking about prohibition. We're talking about the drug war in general. We're going to talk when we come back. I want to talk about medicinal. I want to talk about where that's headed, what the federal, because it's great to have him here so we can kind of glean from him what's happening down in D.C. on where do we stand on moving it again. We talked about the schedule system and why, and moving it from, because a big issue is that the medicinal marijuana places, everything has to be cash. And it had to be cash because the money can't go into a bank in which the bank is FDIC. You can't, because then the bank is carrying drug money. So it can't be FDIC insured. So I'm going to ask him about that when we get back. Hey, listen, you want to be part of the conversation? 301-694-9363. 301-694-WFMD.
News, weather, traffic, and free talk from mid-Maryland. 930 WFMD Frederick. 1 o'clock.
A crowd of people hit by a vehicle in Germany. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. A police spokesman in western Germany says at least 3 people were killed, 20 others hurt when a van crashed into a crowd in the city of Munster.
Police in Munster are saying that the driver of this vehicle in this suspected attack has killed himself. They say there is no longer a threat, although they are urging the public to stay away from the area. We understand that this vehicle drove into a crowd in the centre of of the Old City. We don't know the circumstances of the incident. We don't know the motive, and police are urging caution here. They have said on their Twitter feed just now that the public should not speculate about the cause and the motive for this incident, but certainly they are taking it very seriously.
Fox's Kitty Logan. Police say a suspicious object has been found in the van. It's being examined. Police also say they're checking reports about other perpetrators possibly getting away. The head coach of a junior hockey team in Western Canada has been confirmed dead by his wife. Police say he's one of 14 people who died yesterday when a bus carrying the team to a playoff game was hit by a semi-truck. 14 other people are hurt, 3 of them critically. Helicopters carrying troops with the Texas National Guard are heading toward the Mexico border.
We are in the initial phases of planning right now, so in that effort, it's important to have boots on the ground.
That's Lieutenant Colonel Travis Walters with the Texas National Guard speaking to Fox News. 250 troops from Texas are being deployed. Another 150 from Arizona will head to the border next week. Evacuations in Pittsburgh after part of a highway collapses. On Friday, one apartment building was damaged when part of Route 30 collapsed. Residents in several other buildings have been forced out. Fox News, fair and balanced.
Wildfires burn millions of acres across the country each year. And each year, wildland firefighters battle to contain them. But they can't do it alone. For some communities, it's not a question of if wildfires strike, but when. And a single ember can travel more than 1 mile. As it twists and turns and floats through the air, that single ember can find its way to where you live and can ignite and destroy your home or your community. That single ember can be just as dangerous as the wildfire itself. You can't control where the ember will land, but you can control what happens when it does. You can take action now to prepare your home and your community for wildfire. Get fire adapted. Learn what you can do now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. Prepare, protect, prevail. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
It could be a long weekend for embattled EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt, who may be wondering if his days at the White House are numbered.
White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said that they would not get into hypotheticals, but at least for now, President Trump thinks that Pruitt is doing a good job.
Fox's Ellison Barber outside the White House.
Pruitt is under fire for bonuses to staffers, some staffers that are friends of his from the past. They went against White House order. He's also been under fire for spending on travel and renting an apartment from a lobbyist whose firm represents fossil fuel companies. Sources say President Trump met with Pruitt at the White House yesterday, and they discussed these controversies.
There are reports that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly told President Trump that Pruitt needed to go. Teachers in Oklahoma are preparing to fire up another week of demonstrations at the state capitol. The state's largest teachers union says it'll continue the fight for more education funding. Governor Mary Fallin has already approved raising teacher pay by about $6,100. Trademark infringement has an iconic jeans company suing a luxury fashion house.
The little red tab on the back pocket of Levi's jeans now the subject of a lawsuit. Levi Strauss & Company has sued the French luxury house Kenzo, accusing the company of trademark infringement for putting tabs on its pants pockets, including on a new clothing line featuring Britney Spears. Levi says it's put the tabs bearing its name on back pockets since 1936 as a site identification for its products, and that Kenzo has not complied with cease and desist letters. The complaint filed in San Francisco says Kenzo's activities threaten to cause Levi to lose sales, suffer irreparable damage, and confuse shoppers. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
And in New York, I'm Pam Puso, Fox News Radio.
From the 930 WFMD Roy Rogers Restaurant News Center. This is WFMD News.
A Frederick man was indicted Friday by the grand jury on first and second-degree assault, disarming a police officer, interfering with an arrest, disorderly conduct, and reckless endangerment. The News Post reports that Stuart Delchamps was taken to Frederick Memorial Hospital on March 17th for a psychiatric evaluation after threatening a police officer with a knife. Before being released from FMH, authorities say Delchamps punched a nurse, knocking her to the ground. Nooses were found at 2 Maryland high schools on the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The Capitol reports that Governor Larry Hogan cited one of those incidents in a tweet Thursday, condemning the actions of a Chesapeake High School student who brought a noose and Confederate flag to school Wednesday. I'm Kylie Kahn on Mid-Maryland's news station 930 WFMD.
The 930 WFMD weather bug forecast for Frederick and surrounding counties for this afternoon calls for it to be cloudy. Our high 43. There's a chance of rain and snow into the evening. A slight chance for snow overnight. Cloudy skies will gradually clear with a low of 25. We'll wrap up the weekend Sunday with a sunny day at a high 45. Unity partly cloudy Sunday night with a low of 29. There's a chance for rain and snow into the afternoon Monday. Then a chance of rain. We'll have cloudy skies at a high 44. Again, the high for today 43. And if you need heat, contact the Best. Thompson, Best at bestheatac.com. I'm Rod Tanner.
Local free talk continues on the weekend with Frederick's Forum on 930 WFMD. Conversations with and about local newsmakers. Your hosts, Darren Wigfield and Dave Schmidt.
Welcome back to Frederick's Forum. Darren Wigfield in the studio with Dave Schmidt, as the nice voice guy just said. And our guest today, Howard Woolridge. Again, I feel really fortunate to have Howard with us, and he agreed to stay for another hour. And
first of all, he agreed to come, 4 days ago? Didn't even know about 3?
A couple days ago. Yeah.
Thank you so much for it. So, yeah, we're going to make, normally we talk here for 2 or 3 minutes, but we're really going to make this as short as possible because we want to jump back into it. We've been talking about marijuana policy, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about we've been talking about the drug war kind of in a broad term. We're going to bring it now to medicinal side of it, to treatment, to talking about not only is it about you should just be able to do, here's before we get to the medicinal part of it, I think the argument, whether it's medicinal or not, it's a great discussion. We're going to have it. But frankly, the foundational principle here is that you should be able to do whatever you want to your own body. This is why I don't think that alcohol has very many redeeming qualities at all. But if you want to go drink, go drink.
But
don't drive.
Societally, it's a recognition that alcohol, tobacco, those have high costs to society.
Yeah.
And decriminalizing, legitimizing, medical, recreational, whatever, for marijuana, the costs look like they're going to be a whole lot less. But there's a long way to go, and Howard's been kind of a leader in moving our society in that direction. Well, that's not really accurate. Howard's been a leader in dragging Congress to keep up with society as our own perceptions are moving on.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
We're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, Howard Woolridge from Citizens Opposing Prohibition. I'm Darren Wigfield with Dave Schmidt. If you want to join the conversation, give us a call, 301-694-9363, 301-694-WFMD. We'll be right back.
Bob Miller's been talking about on the WFMD Morning News Express.
Watching that young man spewing the lies that he spews, and he is on every TV show he possibly can. And look, and I'm blaming the TV networks for allowing this to happen. But he made his 15 minutes of fame on the souls of his classmates.
What you hear about in the morning, you'll be talking about all day on Frederick's News Radio 930 WFMD.
Hi, I'm Scott Tannen, founder of Boll & Branch. We make the softest, most comfortable organic cotton sheets you'll ever sleep on. Because we only sell them online at bollandbranch.com, our sheets cost less than half of designer brands and are twice the quality. Hundreds of thousands of Americans love Boll & Branch sheets, including 3 U.S. presidents. Right now, get $50 off your first set of sheets, plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com. Promo code SLEEP, spelled B-O-L-L, and branch.com. Promo code SLEEP.
Here's a big secret organic grocery chains don't want you to know. It's called ThriveMarket.com, the largest online store in the country selling exclusively non-GMO organic groceries, all at guaranteed savings of up to 50% off. Their mission is to make healthy living accessible and affordable for everyone. Get started on Thrive Market today and receive 25% off your first order. Go to ThriveMarket.com/talk. Prices are already discounted up to 50% off, and now they're offering an extra 25% off your first order. That's ThriveMarket.com/talk. ThriveMarket.com/talk.
Looking for today's hottest wellness trends? Visit GNC, where you'll get them for less thanks to our buy one, get one half off deal. Save on black seed oil, turmeric, and milk thistle. Or mix and match Vitapack programs, male performance, probiotics, fish oil, and more. Our premium GNC brand products go through up to 150 quality checks and are the highest quality wellness solutions and supplements in the industry. But hurry, this buy one, get one half off deal is only available for a limited time. GNC. Live well.
The brand doesn't matter. Chevrolet, Toyota, Mazda, Nissan, Volkswagen. If it's a Fitzgerald, you have the low price with benefits available only from Fitzgerald. A trusted brand for 50 years. We thank you. Fitzgerald Auto Mall, Frederick and Chambersburg. Looking for something for your new home? Thinking about a remodel? You will find it all under one roof. Fitzgerald Home Furnishings, American-made furniture and bedding, flooring, and more. Fitzgerald price, so you know it's the low price.
All you do is talk. The talk of Mid-Maryland.
More news.
News Radio 930.
More often.
WFMD.
Welcome back to Frederick's Forum.
Can we get your mic up a little bit, buddy? Yeah, thanks.
Welcome back to Frederick's Forum.
There we go.
Def Leppard promises, just in time to talk about medicinal marijuana and the promises that it makes.
So I know
good job with the music.
I know I always do this, which is we say we're going to talk about something. I just wanted to mention, before there was the DEA, there was the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and the Federal Bureau of Narcotics was the reason most of what is illegal today is illegal. And a lot of it was because of this guy, Harry Enslinger, specifically about weed. And I just want to put a couple of quotes about this. This is the guy right now, right? You are pushing to, dragging, I think is a great, Darren said, dragging policy to get back to what the American
to catch up with where the society
is.
Sure.
So this was the guy dragging policy to what maybe society thought at the time. But here's just a couple of quotes. One, you smoke a joint, you're likely to kill your brother. The primary reason to outlaw marijuana is its effects on the degenerative races. Absolute racist. The hideous monster Frankenstein, if the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with marijuana, he would drop dead of fright. Marijuana leads to pacifism and communist brainwashing. Actually, that one might be true. I don't no, but specifically the reason he was saying that was attributing it to everyone hates communists. We're going to take this thing and we're going to make everybody. We all know we hate communism, man, there are some of these I don't even want to say.
They're ugly.
And so this was a
that was the prevailing attitude of the leading thought leader in regulating these substances.
Yeah, prohibiting them. Kind of like think of it as the drug czar, the first drug czar.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
There are 100,000 total. I don't again. This bothers me even to say this. There's 100,000 total marijuana smokers in the U.S. Most are Negroes, Hispanics, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana use. This marijuana causes white women to want to seek relations with Negroes, entertainers, and any others. Mm-hmm. Roofers makes darkies think that they're as good as white men.
Sure. That was the attitude. That was the justification for the policies we're living under today.
Not just the attitude. That's the man writing the policies that we're now living under today. Right. And so I think it's... you probably know this more than I do, but what is it? How much more likely is it? 4 times that an African American is 4 times more likely than a white to be arrested on charges of marijuana, despite data that suggests that they use the drug at the exact same rate, and in some states up to 6 times more likely to be arrested.
Sure. Yeah, this is a horribly racist policy, and as I said earlier, I said this is the most immoral policy since slavery and Jim Crow. For a variety of reasons, my profession goes after black and brown people way more than white people. We will arrest, this is broad across the United States, we will arrest white people, and we do for marijuana, but it's only if we can't find a black or brown person.
And those are the communities where we're seeing enforcement. You don't have stop and frisk in the nice parts of D.C. You have it in the bad parts.
Yeah.
Right.
It's directives that are coming. Maybe it's the individual officers that are making different decisions, but it's also leaderships deciding where we're going to put our enforcement people. And that's probably in response to what the community is asking for. But none of that absolves us as a society from the immorality of this program, of the drug war.
And how important it is to realize that that was the foundational principle. That was the founding principle of it, was in racism.
Sure.
And then the second piece being, and actually our current Attorney General has said this over and over again, the idea that marijuana is a gateway drug, that the use of marijuana says you smoke marijuana, you eat something, it's crack, cocaine, heroin, you're headed down a bad path simply because of that smoke. And where there's countless studies now, probably not countless, somebody could probably count them. There's a lot of studies that say it's completely not true, that addiction has vastly more to do with things that are going on in your life and your society than it necessarily does with even things like oxy and things that are much more addictive substances, let alone the fact that there is zero evidence that marijuana has any chemically addictive properties whatsoever.
Is that true, Howard?
My best information is that certainly you can become psychologically addicted to marijuana. My college roommate at Michigan State was smoking all day long, and he was stoned. He forgot to go to class. He forgot to do a lot of things, and he flunked out, got drafted, went to Vietnam. Bad time to be a marijuana addict in 1971. But
you can be psychologically addicted to gambling.
Exactly. So the
video games, anything.
Put it simply in terms of police work, what I am an expert at, and that is if we took every person using alcohol today and said you have to use marijuana instead, it would be a much, much safer, better, more secure world by a tremendous factor, because alcohol by its use generates aggressive, violent behavior, reckless behavior. We all know this. We've all seen it. Marijuana, of course, literally Domino's is a billionaire because it makes you hungry, makes you giggle, makes you amotivational, lethargic for a couple of hours, and you order Domino's pizza and fall asleep. I did that for 6 years at college.
I'll tell you, who's the Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning, when he was playing for the Broncos, when Colorado legalized recreational marijuana, he bought up all the Papa John's in Colorado. I was like, that is a smart man.
And the Girl Scouts sell their cookies where? Right outside the dispensaries.
Incredibly smart.
And made hundreds and hundreds of dollars. It was a smart business move.
That's fantastic. Okay, so let's shift a little bit to the medicinal side. So we talked in the last hour a little bit about the problem with the scheduling, that it's scheduled as it has its own special class where there's no, because in Schedule 1 it says that there's no medicinal value, that it's harmful to the person, harmful to society. There's no redeeming qualities about this. Right. And so it makes it so that, and I mentioned this, you might not have been in the room, but that one of the problems being banking regulations, right? That banks you can't use a credit card for it. I can't use my bank card to buy this medicine because then the federal government would be insuring drug money.
Right.
Because it's a Schedule 1 transaction.
Correct.
So is there, as I said, this is why I was saying, I think that's the first domino, that if we can, maybe the biggest domino, that if we can pull it off of Schedule 1, which you kind of in our pre-show prep, you told us there's actually been, so was it the American Legion?
American Legion.
So hold on.
So American Legion.
HR 2020 is what would do this, right?
Right.
Okay. So HR 2020 is a bill that would take it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3.
Correct.
And the American Legion, veterans organization. And Dave, a lot of your buddies from doing war in Iraq, are they members of the American Legion?
War.
Yeah.
So the younger guys, not as much.
Right. That's my point. That's my point.
Yeah.
The American Legion, these veterans community organizations,
a couple of them, but not really.
For better or for worse, are still largely, their members are baby boomer generation folks.
Vietnam.
Yeah.
And now maybe some Korea guys, but.
Yeah.
first come, first served basis, so residents who are interested need to get their applications in as soon as possible. The Maryland Senate has expanded a measure to improve school safety by requiring a school resource officer or otherwise adequate law enforcement coverage at all public schools by the start of the next school year. The Senate voted 23 to 22 Thursday for changing a measure aimed at creating consistent standards for school safety statewide. Some questioned how the accelerated implementation would be paid for. I'm Kylie Kahn on Mid-Maryland's news station, 930 WFMD.
Fox News Radio, I'm Karen McHugh. At least 3 are dead, up to 20 injured in Munster, Germany, after a car plows into a sidewalk cafe. Authorities will not say it. This was an act of terror.
We do know that the driver of this vehicle did kill himself, and police are saying there's no further threat. So that in itself might give some indications as to the state of mind of the driver as to whether or not this may have been intentional. But certainly the authorities there in Germany are not saying anything yet.
Fox's Kitty Logan. At least 14 were killed Friday in a bus crash in Canada's Saskatchewan province. On board were members of a junior hockey team.
It appears that the team bus that was travelling to a playoff game, this is of course a junior ice hockey team that we're talking about, the team bus collided with a big lorry, a transporter truck, late on Friday afternoon around 5 o'clock.
Lorna Shattuck of Sky News reporting. Fox News, we report, you decide.
The 930 WFMD weather bug forecast for Frederick and surrounding counties for this afternoon calls for it to be cloudy. Our high 43. There's a chance of rain and snow into the evening. A slight chance for snow overnight. Cloudy skies will gradually clear with a low 25. We'll wrap up the weekend Sunday with a sunny day at a high 45. Unity partly cloudy Sunday night with a low 29. There's a chance for rain and snow into the afternoon Monday. Then a chance of rain. We'll have cloudy skies at a high 44. Again, the high for today 43. And if you need heat, contact the Best. Thompson, Best at bestheatac.com. I'm Rod Tanner.
Baseball season is back, and the Frederick Keys will begin their 30th season at Nimeo Field. Single-game tickets go on sale on Friday, April 6th at 10 a.m., while fans can get ready for the season at Keys Fest on April 7th. This free event runs from 11 to 2 and includes stadium tours, food samples, catches in the outfield, and much more. Then be sure to come out for the home opener on Thursday, April 12th at 7 p.m. For tickets, call the Keys at 301-815-9939 or visit frederickkeys.com.
Frederick's Forum on 930 WFMD, a service of Hunting Creek Outfitters in downtown Frederick, and Frederick Air, Bryant's National Dealer of the Year.
It's Frederick's Forum on 930 WFMD.
Welcome back. Frederick's Forum, Free Talk 930 WFMD. Listen, if you missed this show, you can always check us in the archives, WFMD.com. And I'll tell you, Howard, don't tell any of our other guests this, but for a couple of our guests, when we have something very interesting, something that really hits home for us, we try to get them to check in over time, give us a call. We've done this with a couple other people. So over time, as things happen, please contact us to let us know and give us a call and talk for a couple minutes. We'll give you 15 minutes or one of the sections. And
you got it.
From wherever you are in the world to keep track. So speaking of good things, we've been teasing, or you've been teasing us for an hour and a half here that you have some good news. So after the slightly depressive last section we had there, I would love to hear some good news.
Yeah, okay, David. Well, on a very serious subject, here in Frederick County and across America, you've got a couple, perhaps up to 2 million people addicted to opioid, heroin, fentanyl, oxycodone type problems, right? Every day we're losing about 120 from an overdose of some sort. And the Swiss, the land of cheese and chocolate, is the world's leader in the most effective, pro-life, efficient way to handle heroin addicts. Their death rate is nowhere near what ours is. I've been there 4 times. I've gone to the clinics. I've talked to the people at the health ministry, talked to doctors who are doing it. And their system is heads and tails above ours. It's medication-assisted treatment with some typical Swiss efficiencies built in. The trouble is, if you're an addict today, you have to go to a treatment facility in America. They're very expensive. And their efficiency rate is, who knows? I mean, there's no consumer's report on saying this is the best method to handle a heroin addiction. The late-breaking news is I did some research last fall. The Swiss government has told me that they agree in principle that a U.S. citizen, a heroin addict, can go to Switzerland and enroll in their program of medication assisted, which is highly effective, and get this amazing treatment. And then the trouble is, I found out that you don't just apply for a residence permit, a visa, a long-term visa through the Swiss embassy in Washington. The individual cantons, of which there's like 27, pass out the visas, the residence permits. So you have to go to, if you're going to go to Bern or Geneva or Zurich, you got to actually contact the local county office to find out if you can have a permit to stay there for 18 months. Just yesterday, I now have a test case of a person in the USA who would like to do this. I've made the inquiries with the Swiss government through the one in Bern, where I'm most familiar, the capital, and we should know within X weeks from now whether the Swiss this canton will issue a residence permit, which means then you can go to Switzerland, you establish your residency, you pay $700 to get into the Swiss program, then you go to the clinic, and as a person who's a permanent resident at that point, you can enroll in the Swiss method of heroin addiction, which is so highly effective. And the reason that Swiss can do it for so little is they do outpatient, and it's actually it's only like $45 a day.
12 to I don't know how much the Swiss. What is the Swiss mark?
What? Franc.
I don't know what the franc is to the dollar, but it's saying $12,000 to $20,000, 12 to 20,000 francs a year
for
per patient.
Is being spent or being saved?
Is the cost? That's $12,000 to $20,000 per patient per year. Is Oh, that's how much it normally would cost. It'd be significantly less. Sorry, yes.
Yeah.
So $1,600 to $3,500,
right.
Something like that.
On the website, Citizens Opposing Prohibition.
And I'm sorry, this is costing the government, not costing the person.
Right.
So I'm saying 10% or 100%.
Because they have national health care. But on the citizensopposingprohibition.org website, click on resources, go to the Swiss program. It's a 6-minute read, a summary of the Swiss approach, and it's approved by the Swiss government. Every year in December, I submit the summary to the Swiss government. They make a few changes, and then they kick it back to me. Then I put it in the website. I've been doing this now for almost the last 8 years.
So they're vetting it before you post it publicly.
Absolutely.
They're saying, yeah, this is
good.
Valid.
This is approved by the Swiss government. And if you have questions, the contact information for the woman in Bern is there, and she speaks better English than me, so language is not a problem. This might be an absolute breakthrough. I'll know in a couple of weeks, and that'd be a reason to call you back, because now the good news is that the insurance is only $700 a year. Of course, you'd have to live there. An apartment in Bern is about $2,000 a month. Then you'd have your food, so it's going to be somewhat expensive, but it is still way cheaper, way cheaper than an American treatment program, because they want you in a residence, and then you're talking many thousands of dollars a month. So
here's some of the results of that. So crime issues, 60% drop in felony crimes by patient, 80% drop after 1 year in the program, 82% drop in patients selling heroin. Millions of doses administered. Not a single participant has died from heroin overdose since the inception of the program. That's incredible. None of the people that have gone through this have overdosed.
Correct.
New infections of hepatitis and HIV have been reduced in patients, which is a huge part of this. Is the opioid epidemic creates disease epidemics because of you borrow the needle from your friend. Exactly. New use rate slightly. Let's see. Cost $48 a day. Nothing.
Right. Correct.
So because they pay $700 for compulsory insurance. So, man, it's the same story as in Portugal, as we talked about earlier.
Sure.
Where simply spending the billions that you spend on putting people in jail and turning it into treatment.
Right. Hey, let me just say, and this is the when people read my T-shirt, "Cops Say Legalize Drugs," they go, but it's so dangerous. I'm going, legal heroin, ladies and gentlemen. Ask your doctor, ask a pharmacist. Legal heroin is simply very, very strong morphine. The same morphine a doctor will give you if you walk into the emergency room with a broken arm, broken shoulder. It's just simply stronger. It's got the actual chemical composition for morphine and heroin is the same. It's just one is thicker, more strong. That's why the Swiss are giving out roughly 10 million doses of heroin in the last 24 years, and 0 people have died. Because it's legal heroin. It's not cut with crap. There's no bad mixture. It's pure certified pharmaceutical grade heroin, and that's why nobody dies. Heroin is no more dangerous than whiskey if you know exactly what you're getting. It's not a play toy, like whiskey's not a play toy. But if you know exactly what you're getting, 86 proof, you know exactly how much you can drink if you weigh 185
But
pounds.
I'd rather take a shot of Jack than try and take a shot of moonshine made by somebody, and I don't know what's in the jar, and who knows what it's going to do to me or how strong it is.
Exactly, Darren. That's the point.
But by making it illegal, by keeping it out of the regulatory framework, you're forcing people to, when they get their doctor hands them, and I think you said the thing about putting millions and millions of doses into a West Virginia or some state, some county in which a couple thousand people live, right? So you have millions of doses, and then what happens when insurance runs out? What happens when the problem goes away? So the doctor starts to recognize, oh man, I've given them too much, stops prescribing. Where do you go? You go to the street, and then you're creating situations which you're getting HIV and hepatitis. You're creating situations where you're creating addicts, and all the while, the people that are creating the drugs that are ruining and destroying all these people's lives are making sure that congressmen don't allow something like marijuana, which could potentially, like you said, even if it was one person, why wouldn't we legalize it? Even if it was one person. And so,
that gets
money.
back to Howard's statement earlier of your entire time as working in law enforcement, you never got a call that was the result of a problem from somebody using marijuana.
Correct.
It's not, you didn't get calls for somebody that smoked a joint and then beat up their spouse.
Exactly.
So,
and I should add, the prohibition of marijuana. We had several armed robberies take place in houses in my jurisdiction, including a shootout between the marijuana dealer and the burglar, and because he wanted the big money.
So somebody was robbing from the dealer.
And they got into a gunfight, and one guy died. So the prohibition of marijuana has caused deaths all over the place. They do every week. But the actual use, and I would challenge Sheriff Jenkins or any deputy to call in and say, you've been a deputy for 14 years in Frederick County. How many times have you gone on a call generated by the use of marijuana where someone used it and got stupid and then fill in the blank problem, rape, assault, whatever? I mean, that would be an interesting survey of the Frederick County Police Department and the city police department. But let me just finish up the other exciting news, guys. One of the problems, and I'm not a treatment expert by any stretch, one of the problems that we know in America is you get clean, and then you're clean for 6 months, whatever, right? Like any addiction, whether it's alcohol, tobacco, and you have a relapse. You have a bad day. Your dog dies. Your wife leaves you, whatever. So you want to turn to your drug of comfort for relief from the overwhelming feelings that you're having about having a bad day. If you're in America, you can't go back to the clinic if you're clean and say, well, I'd like some whatever you were using. So you have to go to the street to get the street heroin, and then if you're unlucky, you'll die, right? And it happens every day. People die.
Because it'll be cut with fentanyl.
And or you've been clean for 6 months, your body can tolerate less, you forget that, and then again you inject and die. In Switzerland, you go and they have bad days just like every other addict. They go back to the clinic. The clinic will say, they'll try to talk them out of it, but if they can't, they say, they will actually give them heroin when they go back and knock on the door of the clinic, but it's legal heroin. They'll say, you haven't used it in 6 months or whatever. We'll give you this many 300 milligrams of heroin versus your normal dose of 900.
It's a medical professional who's doing it.
Exactly. And the patient lives through the episode of crisis. The cheerful news is, and I've got to be careful here, I've talked to some people who have street information. So this is anecdotal, not scientific. However, at this point, when people are dying, you got to do what you got to do. My understanding is that in America, there are already people who go clean from their methadone or Suboxone or whatever they're using, have the bad day 6 months later. they're using high-grade, powerful, 20% THC, as we say, medical-grade cannabis to use as a substitute for heroin. And these people are finding enough of the relief in this high-powered marijuana to take the place of heroin, so that as they have a bad day or two or three, they are living through it because they're using God's green medicine versus having to go back to the street and get street heroin, from which, too many of them die.
Marijuana, which, although we acknowledge is stronger today than it was 30 or 40 years ago, how many people are overdosing on it?
Well, nobody overdoses and dies.
Okay, fair enough.
Exactly. So this is the cheerful news. If you're out there today and you know somebody who's clean on heroin, but they have a bad day and they're thinking about going back and getting some illegal heroin off the streets of Frederick, tell them, please God, try God's green medicine first. Try to get the relief you want from the voices in your head screaming, I want relief. Try the marijuana first, so you can avoid the heroin and not die.
This is why it's so important to get it out of Schedule 1, because we can't even do the research to figure out if you're talking about anecdotal, this is happening in the street, we may or may, who knows? If we had the money, if we were able to take it out of Schedule 1, then we could have the money to research and figure out what is the replacement for methadone? What is the replacement for heroin, right? And again, it goes back to who's making the money off of people dying. And people making money off people dying want to make sure, because look, for every person that's out there overdosing and dying, the pharmaceutical companies are still keeping around all the millions of patients that are taking a pill a day, 2 pills a day, and haven't died yet.
So, Norman, welcome to Frederick's Forum. You said you had a comment about marijuana in general?
Yeah, I want to know what the environmental impact is for the growing marijuana, illegal marijuana, because it's going to put a strain on the power grid. I know in Colorado it's going to be using 20% of the power consumption. These people that yesterday were environmentalists, today they're starting an industry that's going to consume us with the power.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Thanks for your question.
Yeah, good question.
So what's the...
Well, the caller has an absolute valid point. Now, my information is that currently in Colorado today, the grow ops for marijuana are using up 6% of the electricity, which is a lot.
That's a ton of power.
And they're also using a ton of the water. And that's, scarce commodity out in Colorado. The cheerful news is that the newer facilities in Colorado that are being built are using greenhouses. So the power consumption will go close to zero. Water is still an issue in terms of usage, and that they're going to have to figure it out. But the good news is when you can grow it in a state like in Maryland where there's plenty of water, and then use a greenhouse, your impact on the environment will be a lot less.
I mean, we don't grow water thirsty crops in Colorado for food. The only reason we're doing it for marijuana is because of the federal prohibition and not being able to transport it across state lines.
Right. So as the industry started, the fastest way to grow and make money was to convert a warehouse into a marijuana grow ops. And so there is not one warehouse in Denver which is unoccupied. Every warehouse in Denver, Colorado, is occupied by a grow ops, which has been good for the economy. But as the industry matures, as they have more experience, they are now being much more environmentally friendly by using greenhouses, the natural sunlight, etc., to grow their crops. And then we'll see this more as you can grow it across states like Michigan, Minnesota, where there's plenty of water, and then they will be able to be more environmentally friendly.
Here's a quote from one of the CEOs of one of the Denver-based producers where he said, I think it's a short period in history that will change as the future marijuana is more socially acceptable and federally accepted. Because the production methods are allowed to become more agricultural and less clandestine. One of the things about the Maryland
The bad news is leadership, that's Goodlatte and Paul Ryan and McConnell, will not allow a vote. So
you've got the votes.
We've got
you
the
just
votes.
can't get the leadership to call the vote.
Correct. And this is quite common. Again, the power of the pharmaceutical industry, the police prison industry, the private prison industry, and I should also include the $35 billion treatment industry is saying we don't want any changes. So that's why I still have a job on Monday.
Man, status quo. Status quo.
We did a whole
Status
episode with
quo.
Delegate David Vogt from state delegate serving down in Annapolis. Same deal. Right, Bills?
Status quo.
They don't have to take it out of the drawer to even vote on it, even if everybody in the room wants it except for the person sitting at the head of the table.
Status quo, man. I'm making money right now. Status quo. Don't change anything. So that's on House Bill 2020, right? So that would be the descheduling?
Actually, that if you want to support that ending federal prohibition, it's H.R. 975, written by a Republican. Also, H.R. 2020 to move it to Schedule 3 would be a great deal. It's actually doable this year. The former president of the NRA wrote an op-ed about a month ago that said a citizen should not have to give up their Second Amendment gun rights in order to use the medicine of their choice, the green plant. So there's some movement with the NRA to combine with the AAL. I'm working on that. I'll be working on that for the rest of the year to try to get them to also sign on to H.R. 2020, the bill to move it to Schedule 3.
Howard, we've got a caller. Sheriff Jenkins, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Sheriff.
Hello, Howard.
Hey, Sheriff.
Hey, listen, I know we've met, or I believe we have a few times, but listen, I would debate you on a lot of your points today because I frankly don't agree. But I will take the exception to a couple things you said that actually I think you painted a pretty bad picture of law enforcement. We don't have narcotics investigators who fabricate probable cause. We don't target. We don't profile. We enforce the laws, and we do it the right way. So I take exception to some of the things you said about my office and local law enforcement.
Let me just respond quickly that, Sheriff, this was a broad macro across the United States. I believe a majority of the police officers and detectives and narcotics officers are honest and honorable, do not lie on search warrants, but a significant number do. My information across America.
Howard, maybe were you policed, maybe that happened. I can tell you I don't have a liar squad in Frederick County, nor do the Frederick City Police, nor do the Maryland State Police, so I can assure you that.
I believe you, sir.
All right, thank you so much, Chuck. And yeah, Sheriff, I appreciate that. I wish we had more time. We literally are, and I'm sorry, we have like
2 minutes left for the show. But I do want to say, Sheriff, I hope you were listening earlier when we said that you were at the forefront of this opioid crisis and going out in the community and sharing the need for solutions to that and for treatment and for proactive and recognizing that it's not a problem that we're going to arrest our way out of.
Yeah.
And that as using the office that you're in to push that message is both courageous and honorable, and we did cover that earlier in the show. I hope you were around for that part too.
And it's something we talk about often, especially we talked about civil asset forfeiture, that we happen to have a phenomenal sheriff's department and a police department here in City Frederick and the county. But we're talking about a macro issue of across the state, across the country, that there are people that make bad decisions and they're forced to by a profit motive. That it creates a scenario in which someone, like you said, that there are, 12 or so kids that are going to die selling drugs on the streets right now. And again, I'm not talking about downtown City Frederick. We're talking about across the entire United States. Okay, so there is some good news. You're saying that we have enough votes. We just have to get through the leadership. So how can people get involved? You got 60 seconds. Go.
Always contact your state senators, state reps for the stuff going on in Annapolis. They have much more control over this issue locally than the folks in Washington, D.C. Go to your town hall meetings. Ask the tough questions about ending this horribly destructive prohibition of drugs. And at the federal level, same thing. Contact your Congressman Delaney is very much against the war on drugs. The two senators also have made noises in that direction, but they need to hear from you and say, please support an end to the drug war. Make this a medical issue taken care of by doctors. And that will allow my profession to get back to our true mission, which should be 100% public safety. Drug problems should be taken care of by the medical community. CitizensOpposingProhibition.org has information there on the Swiss program, which we are trying to bring into the United States Congress and nationally to get some recognition as to how we can do this better and not have so many drug overdose deaths in Frederick County and across the nation.
I think that's the biggest point here, is we don't want anyone to die. We don't want another police officer to die.
Right.
We don't want another drug user to die.
Right.
Anybody.
Howard Woolridge, thank you for joining us on Frederick's Forum. I'm
Thanks,
Darren
guys.
Wakefield with Dave Schmidt. We'll be back next week.
News